over the last 10 years, I've been filming wildlife. I've been trying to capture animal behavior. And I've learned a thing or two about how to capture a world, how to create a world and draw you in, make it look fantastical and magical. In doing that, I think I've learned a few interesting lessons about life. And I'd like to share some of those with you today. In September of 2021, I was in Kashmir. I was working in Dachigam National Park, which is about 1 hour away from the city of Srinagar. And, you must have heard the word Jannat used to describe Kashmir. And I think Dachigam National Park is the embodiment of that. It's one of the most beautiful landscapes that I've had the privilege of working in. It's a biodiversity hotspot, one of the most biodiverse parts of the Western Himalaya. And we were working on a project funded by the National Geographic Society. We were attempting to film the flora and fauna of this forest in 360-degree virtual reality. The reason to do that was Kashmir is beautiful. This forest is beautiful. It has Asiatic black bears. It has Himalayan subspecies of langurs, and it has Himalayan subspecies of langurs, of hangul, of marmots. But what happens very often in a place like Dachigam, the people who live around the national park, who live on the periphery of the national park, are unable to have a positive relationship with the outdoors. Access to the outdoors in a place that has had some amount of instability, some amount of conflict, is very different to what you or I might be used to. So this project was all about filming in virtual reality, documenting the natural world, and taking these visuals to the people who lived around in that landscape. Now, we got there, we started filming the bears. There is a very short window of maybe 2 to 3 weeks just before winter, at the end of September, early October, when bears from the surrounding mountains, they all come down to these oak groves to feed on acorns and berries, and they raid apple orchards. And they're basically trying to build up their fat reserves before they have to go hibernate. And this causes conflict. Bears get into conflict with human beings, especially early in the morning, late at night. When you're out there, if you chance upon a bear, people get injured and people get killed. So the virtual reality film that we were making was to change the relationship that people living around the park had with bears, and also try and talk about some best practices. Now, we got there, we started filming the bears, we started getting some beautiful visuals. In the clip that I played just now, you must have seen the bear coming and checking out our camera. But there was one animal that I really wanted to film, and that was the Himalayan marmot. These marmots live in Upper Dachigam. It's a one-day hike. You have to carry all your equipment, your supplies, food, tents, go up to this place called Ledwas. You camp there, and it's this rocky, high altitude region. And that was a difficult expedition to plan. And the weather was quite bad. It was raining, and once it rains, the mountain streams flood up, and if you're up on the mountain, you're stuck. We kept working on filming the bears. We were getting beautiful visuals, but I still had half a mind on the marmots and half an eye on the weather. We had 4 days left for our shoot, then we had 3 days left for our shoot, we had 2 days left for our shoot, and then on the final day, Yunus ji, who was our guide and a forest guard, he said, "Sir, मौसम थोड़ा खुल गया है, अभी chance ले सकते हैं." I thought to myself, we had got really good visuals of bears. We had got the main story that we wanted. What should we do? Should I extend the shoot, stretch our budget, go up there to Ledwas and camp for a day or two? I don't know if we'll find the marmots or not. We decided to go. And this is what we got. These visuals were the highlight of my VR film when we finally finished it, right? We had we got great bear visuals. We told the stories of the bears, but the visuals of the marmots is what really invoked wonder and joy when we took our film to the people living in the villages around the park. Not just kids, adults, everyone would gather around. They'd be very excited. We would put the headset on them, and every time that marmot would jump out from behind the rock, it was the same reaction. Everyone was like, wow. And I think that is something that taught me something very interesting about life. All of us have that one thing in our minds that we really want to do. Sometimes the time is not right, the circumstances are not right, there are challenges in our way. And often, life is fine without doing that thing. You know, that's not the main thing. We can go on with our lives without doing that thing. I have found, in my experience, filming animals, that it's always worthwhile keeping half a mind on that one thing, half an eye on that one thing, and sooner or later, an opportunity will present itself. You will get a window where you can go the extra mile to do that one thing that you've always wanted to do. It could be a goal of yours, a dream of yours, and that always makes a difference. Taking that moonshot, in my experience, has always helped elevate anything that I'm doing. In 2015, I was a young assistant wildlife cameraman. I had just started, and I found myself in coastal North Karnataka. We were looking for a frog, a bullfrog, and I was sent out to film the mating behavior of the Indian bullfrog. Now, these bullfrogs are typically pretty boring. They're dull brown, they're kind of large, but they spend most of their time in little rock pools by the muddy sides of streams, in dark and damp places. But at a very specific time of the year, when the first rains come in, these frogs put on a fantastic show. The males change color. They become bright yellow with bright, stunning blue vocal sacs, and they all gather in these fields that are flooded with the first rains, and they fight. They fight for dominance, and usually after about an hour or two of jostling around, fighting, scratching, the females would come out and they mate. So we went out to this place. We knew that we had to catch the first rains. We got there in the last week of May. It was really hot, and we would drive up and down the coast. As it is in the beginning of monsoon, you have these short, quick showers. And every time there was a shower, we would get a call from our local collaborators, from farmers we had spoken to. And they would be like, "Sir, your kappu is here." Kappu is frog in Kannada. And usually, that would be 50, 80, 100 kilometers away from where we were. And we'd go driving down to that place. By the time we would get there, the mating would usually be over. There would be maybe 3 or 4 frogs hanging around by the little puddle of water, not bright yellow anymore, turning back to their brown color. And then the next day, we were back on the road looking for the frogs. And this is what we saw. Every day, we saw barren fields, dry fields, fields flooded, but just barren fields. Until one day in, I think, the second week of June, our luck changed. It was cloudy, it was stormy in the evening, and it rained really heavily overnight. The next morning, we got a call from this farmer who lived right outside where we were staying, and he said, "Sir, there are so many frogs out here, you have to come here immediately." So we packed up all our stuff and we went, and there was we found in a field by the highway, there were, I think, 15 or 18 of the frogs that you were just seeing. Can you go to the next? Yeah, there were 15 or 18 of these frogs, and that was it. I knew that this is what I'm waiting for. We got to work. We had these special tripods that help us get low to the ground. My camera was maybe 2 inches off the water, and we started filming the frogs in high speed, capturing every detail that we could see. And it took about 4 hours. Those 4 hours were flow state, because this is something we were waiting for 20 days. And finally, when you see it, you know it's going to get over soon. I'd reached at a lot of places where the mating had just gotten over. We finished filming, we got up, we dried ourselves, and packed up all our stuff, got into the car, and as I was getting onto the highway, I looked back just to see where we had been filming. And you know what? What I saw looked just like the empty, barren fields that I had been seeing for the last 20 days. It looked no different. And that got me thinking, what was the difference between the empty fields, the boring landscape that we had been seeing for 20 days, and these visuals, these amazing, brilliant frogs that we had just filmed? And I think what made the difference was the attention to detail. The effort of those 4 hours that we took, sitting on the ground with all our equipment, using all of our knowledge of cinematography, painstakingly capturing each detail. You know, before that morning, we could have driven up and down past that field every day. There was nothing special happening there. But that morning at 8 a.m., when the mating was at its peak, I could have still driven down that field, past that field, and not seen anything special if I wasn't there putting in the effort to try and capture the details. And I think that is something that has taught me something very special about life. As you're going down the highway of life, you look out of the window and you see just a normal, barren landscape. You don't think there's anything special. What it takes to create something special in life is attention to detail. Any one thing that you choose to pay attention to, that you choose to put your efforts to capture in great detail or to elaborate on, that becomes special. And I think that is, that it could be the same situation, it could be the same location in this case, but the attention to detail makes it special. People often ask me, how did I get started with wildlife filmmaking? And the answer to that is by accident. I discovered filmmaking by accident while I was studying engineering because of the people that I surrounded myself with. I discovered wildlife and documentaries by accident because of an internship that I got when I was 23 years old, my first internship after college. And I discovered the first film that I poured my heart into, that taught me how to be a filmmaker, that taught me how to take an experience and make something meaningful out of it by accident. My teammate, who you saw in that little clip, was in coastal Andhra Pradesh in 2017, and she happened to come across about a dozen dead manta rays in this fishing village. And that was really shocking for us because manta rays are extremely sentient animals. That's a manta ray underwater. These animals are the gentle giants of the ocean. They are often confused with stingrays, the animal that killed Steve Irwin. But mantas don't have a sting. They're distant relatives of sharks, but they don't have teeth. They just swim through the water with their mouth open, filtering the water, and they feed on plankton, tiny, microscopic animals, and that's what they feed on. But what makes them really special is how they interact with divers in the water. A manta would come swimming to you, it'll circle around you, look at you, and really try and understand what is this weird, funny, new thing in my environment. And that is something that's rare in the underwater world. A few whale species do that, and manta rays do that. And when you're underwater with a manta, the manta would come up to you, it would lock eyes with you, and in that moment, you have this profound feeling that you're sharing space with a very special animal. You're locking eyes with an animal that is removed from you by millions of years of evolution. So mantas had a special place in our hearts. And when we came across these dead mantas in this fishing village, we knew we wanted to make a film about it. You know, my teammate called me. The next morning, I landed in Kakinada, went to this port, and started filming what we were seeing. We didn't know what the story was at that point of time, but we just knew that we wanted to we wanted to document this and see where it leads. We started filming with fishermen, interviewing them, asking people, what do you do with this animal that you're catching? And it turned out the fishermen didn't really know. They knew that they were catching these animals in their nets. They would come back, cut up the body, dry out the gills, and every 2 weeks or so, some middleman from Chennai or Visakhapatnam would come and buy bagfuls of the gills, and they didn't know where it went after that. We knew that this was not a story that we could tell in 10 days. So we filmed what we could, we interviewed as many fishermen as we could, and we went back home and we started thinking, what are the different aspects of this story that we need to explore to complete the picture? We got in touch with an organization called the Manta Trust. They do research on manta rays, and we told them that we want to film mantas underwater. So we knew that we had to capture the natural beauty of these animals. This was, like I said, this was right at the beginning of my career. We didn't know how to go about it. So we got in touch with the Manta Trust, and they said, you know what? We have an expedition happening in the Maldives. We have oceanographers and genetic scientists and other researchers, and we have a boat. Why don't you come and you can go on the boat and film, and we'll do our research. We went to the Maldives. We spent a month there, found a friend's house to live in, and filmed the manta rays. And we came back. We had 2 parts of the story now. We had the fishermen in Andhra Pradesh. We had the underwater visuals that was necessary to show people what manta rays were. And again, we were back to the drawing board. How do we find the next part of the story? It so happened that a few months down the line, there was this person who was carrying 2 bagfuls of dried manta rays in Manipur, trying to drive it across the border to Burma. The Indian Army, the Assam Rifles, stopped this little guy in his white Maruti van and inspected the cargo, and they took a picture of the bags. This looked like dry fish. This is a region where there's a lot of trade, and army personnel don't really know the difference between one animal and another. But they took a picture of it and sent it to the local forest department. They knew what it was, and those guys got in touch with the Manta Trust saying, hey, just in case you're interested, there was a shipment of manta ray gills that was confiscated. The Manta Trust contacted us, and the next day we were in Manipur. We managed to film with the army guys who caught the shipment, who confiscated it. We also managed to film with the man who was trying to transport it over the border, the smuggler. He insisted that he was sending these gills to Burma, but after investigating a little bit, it was obvious that the final destination was Hong Kong and China, where these gills are used in the traditional Chinese medicine trade. So we said, okay, we've got 3 parts of the story. We need to get the 4th. We went to Hong Kong. We went to the dry seafood markets. We spoke to traders. We spoke to shopkeepers, trying to figure out where are they getting they were selling thousands of kilos of manta ray gill plates. Where are they getting this from? A lot of it from India. We filmed with undercover spy cameras, tried to pretend that we were businessmen trying to set up a business of Chinese medicine in India, whatever we could to try and get more of the story. And that was a very essential part of constructing this film. We came back and we started editing the film. But there was something missing. We had filmed with the fishermen on the coast. We had filmed underwater in the Maldives. We had filmed at the border where this guy was trying to take this contraband to another country, and we had filmed in Hong Kong. But we hadn't filmed with the middlemen. We hadn't found the real people who were exporting this contraband. When we had gone to Manipur, the army guys had given us a little export slip that was there with the bag, with the manta ray gills, and there was the name of a trading company. It was just the name of the trading company, and it said Chennai. So we said, okay, you know what? We've edited the film. It's looking okay, but we need to explore the last dimension of the story. We went to Chennai, we tried to track down this company. It took us a few days, found the guys who were the ones who had actually sent that shipment and who sent multiple shipments of manta ray gills to China, to Hong Kong, to Burma. And that really completed the whole loop for us. We ended up with a film that I'm really proud of. A film that was nuanced, that was not trying to say that these are the bad guys, these are the killers, and these are the good guys, these are the saviors. It looked at every aspect of the problem, looked at fishermen who are trying to feed their families, it looked at the people who are involved in the trade, and the film ended up doing well. It was the first film that did well. We went to several international festivals, we went to TV. And I think that experience taught me that it's always important to pull at every thread, right? It's always important to follow every lead. You might think that, okay, you've got whatever you're working on in your life, whatever you're trying to build, it's always worthwhile going that extra step. It's always worthwhile going back to the drawing board, looking at what you have and say, you know what, there's a missing piece here. Let me see how I can fill that in. And I think that is something that has helped me with every film that I've worked on since. Well, that's my experience, and those are the things that I've learned from making wildlife films. Thank you.